Welcome to the Fitness Queens podcast, empowering your mind and sculpting your body. Join your hosts, multiple fitness world champions, Alicia Kyrios and Stephanie McHugh, as we explore all things female health, training, competing, mindset, and living the fitness life every day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of We Fitness Queens with my beautiful co-host, Stephanie McHugh.
Hello, everyone. So good to see you, Ali, like always. And hello to all the listeners. It's so good to be on.
I think baby girl's even saying hello to you. She's giving me a couple of big swift kicks real hard the minute you start talking.
I cannot wait to meet her. Okay, countdown.
Mate.
How many weeks now, Ali?
We're 2 weeks. 2 weeks and hang on 1, 2, 3 days.
Day countdown.
Crazy.
That is insane.
I know. It like blows my mind when I think about it. But
2 weeks. Oh
wow,
my gosh.
I
14
know.
days.
It's not long.
Oh man, I'm just obviously right now she's glowing. If you guys can see her face, she's probably one of the prettiest freaking pregnant women that I have ever came across. I'm like, Ali, you're pregnant? Like, gosh, you are thriving. So many women comment that, and I can really say the same thing. Looking gorgeous like always, Ali, and so happy that you look healthy. You look so healthy.
Oh my God, and I'm feeling it. We actually have a scan on Monday to go in and look at her sizing and tracking the size and development of her over the last trimester, because I was growing, I guess my obstetrician was worried that I was growing small. So she's like, we need to check on her. And it's like literally when she told me that we would do that, which is about 3 or so weeks ago to now, and my scan's on Monday, quite literally, it's almost like she got the memo and she has just ballooned. Yep.
So this has been your biggest growing phase this last few weeks.
It has, which usually it is. So if I'm really honest, it's always been a little bit like this. Like I've always been
all the mamas
smaller, and then just how, that last trimester is like but I think it's because my obstetrician's used to seeing me, because we've used the same lady now that we used with George, and she's used to seeing me the last time round when I had George. And even though my belly wasn't like super huge, I had to, in that IVF process, gain all that body weight, right? I had to gain all this body fat. I had to change my BMI. I was carrying at this point in the pregnancy, which is funny because I look back on photos and I go, I don't think I'm drastically bigger, but my actual circumference of my belly is actually a little bit bigger right now than it was with George. But I think it's because I'm smaller everywhere else, because when we transferred this time, it was literally a frozen transfer, and I didn't have to go through a year-long drug cycle. And I came out of Atlantic City and then the wedding, and I had moved into a development season. So I just started putting on, a little bit of body fat, but it was still negligible compared to what I started with George. So at this point in the process, my circumference of my belly is a little bit bigger than I was at the same time with George, but I'm weighing about 4.5 kilos less. Crazy.
Oh, lovely.
Crazy.
Though.
So I think she was like looking at me going,
you look bigger, but you look bigger, but you know what? You weigh. That's amazing what, the muscles do to your body composition. So adding more lean mass, which you have done much more this year too, which actually that's one of the things that we're both, definitely trying to achieve. So yeah.
So I think today's episode, what we wanted to talk about was actually cover off a little bit about, just 2023 for each of us as a whole. And then we're going to discuss, obviously, the very exciting news with the launch of the FMG shows and the show schedule. And we've got more to come, but it's so exciting that we've got them on the cards, definitively set now for people to start working towards. And then, we thought we'd just sort of discuss and share our own respective journeys on route to, what will be our first FMG stage, which I'm so loving the fact that we're going to share this journey again. But for everyone listening, 2023 has been a roller coaster ride. And, for me personally, I'm really big on reflective practice. So at the end of every year, I'll do a quick little holy crap, moment, and I will look back on what was and what's transpired, and I will, try to learn from as much as I can, the good and the bad. And then, just take that with me into the intention setting for where I want 2024 to go, right? I'm not big on New Year's resolutions. I believe that we should be really practicing reflective practice frequently, not just at the end of the year.
Just
And I
once a
don't think we
year,
should be
yeah.
setting wishes. We should be setting intentions, and that's a very different thing too. So we sort of thought today we'll cover off some of that. But I did this post yesterday, and it really was like the start of my reflective practice. I've probably been doing it a little bit because I'm nesting and coming into this baby being born too. I don't know.
The nurturing
But man,
phase.
wasn't 2023 a wild fucking ride?
Oh, it was a roller coaster, man.
Oh my
Man,
gosh.
it was a very tough year for me. It was probably one of my hardest years on a note where I feel like everything pulled me in so many different directions.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same structure that I'm used to. I'm a very big creature of habit, and all of my habits had to change. My effort, my pace, everything that came normal to me was now not normal. So there was just, it was a tough mental year. I think this is probably the year, and I've spoke a little bit on this a couple times in the podcast before. It's like, man, the mental health side of things
Mm,
really affected me this year.
yeah.
And it was like, God, it got to me more than it ever has. And it was never even in my competitive years, which is crazy when I
Yeah.
reflect back on it. It's like, man, I didn't ever really get in my head until I wasn't on stage, or I didn't get to compete, or I didn't get to go through a prep, and
Yeah.
I had all these injuries. And obviously there's a reason for everything, and like all the heartbreak and all the pain and all the stuff that happened. I think that, like, again, like there's a reason for it all, and gosh, like the reflection, that's just so powerful. So anyone that's listening and hasn't started to reflect in 2023, or hasn't started to reflect on the good and the bad, because it's important to see both and see
Mm,
how you can,
very.
like gain, but also lose by leaving behind what doesn't serve you. And I think,
100%. I love
yeah,
that. I love that whole concept, because for a lot of people, they'll look only at what they don't have, and it's like there's a hole there, rather than going, well, that leaves space now for something better, and walking towards something better. And I think, letting go of the things that don't serve you is a massive part of walking
ugh,
through one door and
hard
into
part.
one, right? It is difficult. So I guess just for everyone here that's listening, what is reflecting? It really is about looking at, accomplishments, challenges, actions you've taken yourself. And it's about being really quite honest with yourself about it. Like, what did I do well? What did I suck at? Where did I freeze? Where did I procrastinate? Where did I surprise myself? All of those things. It's the dual, double-edged sword process of looking at the good and the bad, but then accepting and celebrating both sides of that, right? The things you can't control,
Exactly.
but then also, the wins you've had. It's looking at, from a personal experience point of view, the way that a situation may have made you feel and your part in it. It's all of those things. And I think it should be done
Absolutely.
personally, professionally, and then, if you're an athlete, it should be done respectively as an athlete in your sport and in your sphere of focus, because every little part of every element across your life in those phases can be built upon, like the number
Yes.
one thing is you have to do it with no self-judgment. There has got to be no, blaming. There's got to be no negative, connotations associated with it. It's just got to be, it is what it is, but I find it powerful. I really
I
do.
agree. I agree. Look, and that's, I think, the tougher part where you said there, it's doing it without judgment. And I think that's hard, right? It's easier said than done, because we all judge ourselves so much. And we sit here and overanalyze and pick ourselves
Yes.
apart.
Yes.
What we always do wrong, but not what we do good. And I see this often, like from not just myself, but a lot of clients. It's like constantly saying, what they can do better, but they're not really taking in how far they've either come, how good they've actually become at doing what they're doing now. So it's really about reflecting in yourself, not just the year. It's like, okay, I've actually grown from 5 years ago, like 5 years ago me, not just a year ago me, because sometimes that progress may seem so little and it
So
may seem
small.
it's not there. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
small. It's there. And I think that the more I continue telling myself, well, 5 years ago, like that difference does make a big heap, for me, because the more I'm able to see, oh, I'm changing, even though before I'm like, oh, I'm the same. I'm the same, like whether if it was physical or on a mental note.
Right.
But in reality, I've been changing so much, but you don't allow yourself to see the progress or the good wins that you're having because you're chasing those bigger wins.
Yeah.
Those small wins now become like, you're just passing by them, you're overlooking them, and you don't see the traction you're actually building. So I think that it's really important, like you said, to, not be judgmental, but it's very
Exactly.
hard. It's hard. So trying to look at those small wins is what I revert back to. Because if I keep focusing on the big picture or the bigger wins, I feel like I'm falling behind, or I just don't feel like I've done enough. So I hope that helps anyone that's kind of like struggling with maybe not like
Yeah.
seeing how good they're actually doing something that they're doing at the moment, because as they're
Yeah.
chasing the next goal, they're just not seeing how good they're actually at or how good they're actually, progressed. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I find too, often it will be that there will be a hang up on one area, so if one little portion or part hasn't gone exactly how someone felt it could have, should have, then they forget all these other elements and areas that have been exceptional, and they're only focused on this one thing. And it's like, no, you can't do that. You've got to wrap up the whole year and be like, hey, there's all this awesome stuff, and have meant
but
to have gratitude for it.
But mind you, yeah, we all fuck up. We all, like, of course, have to call ourselves out and not, sit there and just make excuses, because we all tend to make those
Yeah.
excuses. So we'll make an excuse, as to why we didn't do this. And myself included here, like I can go through some of the things. Like I think, I didn't do well. Like I think like I could start with that before even going into my wins, just because we'll pick those apart first anyways. It's like, oh, I didn't do that, anyway. So I mean, of course, I told you guys even a year ago actually that I would start doing more photography, and that was definitely something that I had high hopes for, and I still do, and it's not something
Hey,
I'm gonna
you
go.
spent a lot of time on your coffee, lady.
Oh, but I was gonna
You
say,
spent a
but so
lot
on the
of
other end, let's
time
go to the
on
other
your coffee.
spectrum, my biggest win is, guys, I can label myself now as actually like a barista.
Yeah, you
So
can. So I
there we
remember that
have.
conversation, and there was two big things in that conversation, and the first one actually was coffee. So we did prioritize that. That was number one value
I
stream.
did pick. I
Number
did pick.
two was photography. But in your defense, you were rocking around for at least 70% of the events I went to with a goddamn camera, and you were taking
That's
photos.
the battle,
I've got
man.
them. I have them. I have evidence. There is actual living proof you were
Thanks,
doing it.
Allie.
It's just,
Appreciate that.
it wasn't your number one. Number one was the coffee. But you know what I like to say? You had your priorities straight and in the right order, as far as I'm concerned, because I get to benefit from your barista skills now every time I'm around you. I can't deny it. And on that note, though, you gave me some beautiful photos of me and Georgie. So the
Oh,
photography skills are actually pretty
and I
blessed.
still have some other ones that I have to upload for you that I took in Australia of Georgie. Is like literally the cutest. But so like guys, what I mean is I definitely honed in to one thing
Yeah.
more than the other. I set up two goals. There were two goals I really wanted, and these were non-aesthetic goals, guys, because we haven't even dug into that yet. It's more on trying to create something that made me happy, but at the same time I had passion for. So there were two things I had set on, which was photography and coffee took the win. And I do feel very confident in my abilities at, managing most, let's say grinders, coffee machines, like let's say the lingo, like the getting, even in conversation with baristas, I feel actually really invested into the topic. So I learned a lot this year because I studied it. I made sure I did things every single day that related to it. And then with the, photography, I definitely had the passion, but I didn't have, let's say, the commitment to that. Just like Ali said, like I had my priorities a little bit different. But I still had, and I know this as a coach, if you don't, put into action or at least have the things ready for you and accessible to you, it's not going to ever happen. So having that camera always at hand was actually one of the biggest steps for me, in accomplishing, for me, my biggest gap was never really having the tools and always say, oh, I should have had the camera. This is a perfect scenario. So instead of that, I always cut out that excuse because I always had it with me. And if I had it with me now, it was more on, okay, did I set it up? Yeah, do I do it? Right? Do I feel embarrassed? And I think that this is another kind of barrier a lot of people may struggle with, because I actually noticed this more than anything. I built a lot of anxiety in public with that damn camera. It was because it was so big. It was different versus a phone. Like on a phone, like you just, I don't know, feel so much more normal carrying your phone or doing selfies or taking pictures rather than with the big freaking camera. You're like, but I'm not really a photographer, guys. And this is me always feeling embarrassed. I'm not a professional photographer, but look at me with my big ass camera. Like it just made no sense. And I guess I was just criticizing, the looks and all
what
the things.
it was, it's imposter syndrome. So you're feeling a little bit like, I'm not there yet, therefore I'm a fraud. And so that's where you've associated that whole fear and anxiety of people judging. Whereas reality is, you know what? Until you go out and tell people you are not a professional, no one would even know. They'd be looking at you thinking that you are, you bloody idiot. You got to stop doing that.
This is the beginner mentality. And this is actually a good example for anyone out there taking on any skill. It's like we always label ourselves as our beginner, and I am, but like Ali just said, no one would know. I was a beginner if I would just take the action and just take the damn pictures and not really care of what they thought. But I cared too much. And obviously this is something I have analyzed, and I have been able to see, this is where my next gap and my next barrier is. I've made progress, so I'm not going to go down on myself and say I failed, because I didn't fail. I did progress than where I was last year. So I feel like that's a win.
That's so good.
But I can be better. So I will get better for next year.
That is so good. I love that. Did you have another one you want to throw out for next year other than just nailing the photography? Because we already have the coffee down pat.
Oh, yeah, that's staying. So obviously physically, guys, I think when it comes down to physique, we can say my year was definitely healing my body, getting it to a place where I can actually be mobile and have, good workouts, because I wasn't even able to do upper body at some point, because in the middle of the year, I did have an upper body injury, due to all these imbalances that I was having in my body. So now I'm still not 100%, but I'm feeling better than I have like all year when it comes down to lifting. My muscles get good, connection. I'm able to get a pump. I'm able to load. There's just a lot of variables that before it was painful. I couldn't even pass, joint pain, like just having over fatigue and just not recovering. My metabolism was just not healing itself either. So I feel so much better gut wise, hormone wise. My, let's say, I wouldn't say I'm 100%, like I said, fixed yet, because I still have a lot of little areas that need some work, but I'm way closer. So I feel good into a transition phase to my build. So I can't really dive into my builds, let's say, like if I would be 1,000. But I do feel
for our listeners, what you mean by that is you can't go straight into big compounding strength blocks, right? You just can't do that.
Deadlifts are still just not not going to be my friends.
It's not that you're not working on building or shaping or growing the physique. It's probably just not the normal strategy you would apply, because you're having to use rehabilitative and prehabilitative programming still. So it's just a little different. It looks a little different. And I can relate, because man, we know I did this year in, year out for like 6 years. It was
great. Looking back for any listener that hasn't followed up or heard from the beginning, Ali had a back break, broken back, which is severe. So she definitely gets all the rehab work. So yes, a lot of rehab work. So I feel like all of that's going to really make a big difference going into my lifts once I'm able to do them. But as of now, they're still not into my program. It's really just a lot of unilateral work, a lot of, let's say, just stationary things with machines, stabilized. I do have some free, some free weight movements just for, again, back to mobility, trying to increase my range, make sure that I am healing and actually able to use my core. There's just a lot of things that I wasn't activating as good as they could be. It wasn't mean that I didn't have strength there. It just means that I wasn't firing it up as optimally. So a lot of things are firing up better in higher cylinders. So with that being said, building muscle is 2024's biggest goal, is gaining more muscle back. I've been focusing on building muscle this year, but it hasn't been optimal. Like I said, things weren't really working in my favor. So I didn't really gain the traction that I could have by taking the year off from stage. So because of the healing process, I had to stay, trying to go into surplus, but my body just wasn't really liking it too much hormonally. So I had to stay more above maintenance. So that's what my year has looked like a lot when it came down to how I approached my year. But I do, like I said, I feel on the exit of that. So going into getting a little more uncomfortable with maybe adding this surplus and actually going into a true build, which is what a lot of people, I guess, are more excited to see that
oh my God, I can't wait because I actually haven't seen this for maybe 5 years. I reckon about 5 years on you.
5 years,
because you've been maintaining, chiseling, perfecting a little bit of shape, but
and
not
COVID
really
happened.
exploding. So it's gonna be really nice. And I can say that too because you look great when you are like a little thicker and a little curvier and a little smoother. But you make off seasons look delicious, lady. Like everyone should aim to look as good as you in an off season. So I'm excited for this. I really am. Like I think let a little bit of the condition go because girlfriend, you rock a pair of
I'm fine without having the condition. It's just Ali, whenever you have a lot of like events and there's just other things that there's just like there's no point. What was the point if your body wasn't going to build? Like there was no building, let's say, coming out of it if my effort and my let's say intensity and my training was just not going to be there. So now that I can apply that and I feel much better. So that's going to be the main goal, but at the same time it's making sure that I can listen to my body and rest more, because one of the biggest lessons from this year was slowing my pace. So I actually was able to grow some. I'm not saying I didn't make progress.
No, I just minimal compared to what it would have been had you been fully healthy. No, I totally understand. I can totally relate to that. I'm super excited for this. I'm pumped to see this journey. It's going to be so good, and I think everyone should be following it because when she's actually in an off season like this chick applies champion level mindset.
I like to try
too. Good. And it will be nice to see you be a big beast again. It's been a little while, so I'm
so small. I mean, the girls could probably hear the let's say girls that maybe stepped away from building are like, oh, I've lost my muscle. I'm like, I feel small. I'm like, look, me too. We're on the same boat. Don't worry. It's like
what is good though, muscle memory will be your best friend, and you'll bounce back quite quickly, which is great. I love it. And one thing that I do love is that you've talked about and I think that this is a good segue into where from once you've done your reflective process is setting your intentions, right? But setting them in a way where it's a realistic level. And, one of the things you talked about was really slowing down. So not having this, I've got to be 100 miles an hour, tick all the boxes, do everything, be perfect, and more about, hey, slow down, take time, take attention, be present, and instead of being, caught up in that rat race of perfection, just be consistent, I really love that. And I think that's probably something that I took away from 2023 was, I went into the year thinking post Atlantic City, where that was only 21 weeks postpartum. I could not build. I could not grow. I was just cutting. I couldn't even train at all for the first 12 weeks with complications post C-section. So I only had like 12 weeks in the gym. Like it was nuts. I came out of that and I had all these best laid intentions to go and improve and then hit the stage for a world title, right? And thank the Lord, things happen sometimes for you, not against you. I'm a big believer of this.
Amen.
So one of my biggest reflections in 2023 was that the divine timing of everything, we should 100% just have faith in. Because when we went for my checkup, while I was in the proceeds of in my head thinking at some point in the next 2-3 months, there's going to be the cut starting, my doctor was like, I'm not really comfortable with you actually doing another comp because we may not actually get you another child if you are really wanting that. So the minute she talked about these things, we just went straight in and not expecting the transfer to work. And we've talked about this on previous episodes, but it took straight away. And my whole year in the space of 3 weeks turned on its head, and everything that I was doing just looked the polar opposite and way faster timelines on bringing, another little baby into our home. But it was all the right time. And just like you, it made me go, hey, hang on a minute. I got to actually pay more attention to what is realistic, and also I got to a big place of going, I'm not forcing anything. So coming out of this process now, I could go jump on a stage at some point next year. I'm not going to, because I'm actually going to come out of this. And I've even got a strategy, and I'm going to share all of this stuff on my social media. And I think we might even do a podcast on it, on how I'm going to attenuate muscle loss in a state of potential atrophy immediately post C-section, because I didn't approach my C-section with this level of focus and strategy last time because I'd never had one before. I had no idea what I was in for. I did not know.
That you gained.
It's 100%. So when I do my reflection practice, it's like, okay, well, what personal experiences did I go through? Well, the biggest one that I went through was the C-section post complications, loss of muscle atrophy, getting on stage, just missing first place. What a kick in the balls, so it's like,
but there was you never had time to reflect because you were in such a place. And mind you, you were in a deficit when we were doing reflection last year. Remember, you were trying to get out of, actually being in the lowest, probably insane deficit that I think I've seen anyone
ridiculous. It was freaking ridiculous.
It's something I would recommend for someone to do, but I mean, it was incredible achievement of hers,
big even resilience, right? It just showed me the resilience I had, but it was also I would never repeat that.
Your accomplishment though, Allie, like inspiration. So it shut all the ladies up. I'm sorry that says it can't be done, but at the same time, it did kind of give us a little bit more of like, okay, oh crap, I never got time, ever a gap. There was nothing for you to even a little time to gain that muscle, even slightly back, or not be in a negative, which is atrophy. So listeners that don't understand what the word atrophy means, it's when your muscle essentially is eating itself, right? It's like
the scary part for anyone listening to this is that literally just 3 days. It only takes 3 days. And what I didn't know moving into that C-section was that the whole first 7 days, I literally couldn't get out of bed. So just thinking about that alone, if I'm going to lose 0.5% of my muscle every, I think it's
just the muscle loss, guys.
It's so within tough. 3 days that starts. It's a lot, right? And especially when I didn't have a massive amount leading into it because I had been compromised through IVF and pregnancy, right? So this time I was like, no, I'm not doing this. My journey's going to look very different. I have got a strategy about hospital. I've got a strategy with my food to attenuate muscle loss as much as I can. I've got a strategy coming back. And then I go straight into surplus. So there is no deficit for me on the card for 2024. I'm going to grow like a beast. And my next thing is I wanted to be an Gumby first time complete beginner at something again. And I wanted it to be something that was going to be mentally pushing my boundaries and limits. And the number one thing that everyone knows is from my back and my history and being told that there are things I would never be able to do, the first thing I was told was I'd probably never squat or deadlift again. And then I went on to do my powerlifting competition. So I've always wanted to compete, get to the point where I could be competitive in another sport, and I wanted to do CrossFit. But my limitations with CrossFit is I can't Olympic lift because of my back. So I'm going to blast that theory out of the water, and I'm actually going to get one-on-one and really safe, proper technique building from the ground up as a complete Gumby Olympic lifting lessons. So that's my 2024. By the end of 2024, I want to be safe
for building muscle too.
Yes. So my whole goal in 2024 is about rehabilitation, then building a new skill set and a pattern and, of movement that I, really got told and also firmly had believed for a very long time that I would never do, that I'd never have access to it. I want to break that, and I want to struggle through something new, but have it completely change, a preconceived limiting belief that I might have had around it. And then I want to have that contribute positively to this rebuilding of my physique, because, like you, I've got to get back to my biggest, best, leanest self, and potentially even better than that, in order to be a world champion level physique on the world stage in 2025. So 2024 is going to look really different to what it did post George, and in a really great way. And I feel like this is a really realistic intention setting, is that I'm not expecting to go be Brooke Ents tomorrow, because I won't be as much as I would love to be. Mind you, I would love to be like either of them. That's not going to happen. But what I can say is I'm going to become a beginner, and I will be humble about my starting point and work on it from there, right? And I'm about growth. I'm about growth in every level of the word in 2024. Growth as a parent, growth as a wife, growth as a coach, growth as a student as I finish off, part of my psych studies, and then growth as an athlete. So that, for me, if I could just sum up 2024 and what my intentions are in one word, it's growth on every level. But I think, like being able to reflect upon the things and then go, what I always do, this might help people actually. My reflective process is really simple. It's 3 questions that I ask myself. What was the situation, incident, experience, story, whatever, in the period or the time or the area that I'm looking at, professional, athlete, or personal? So what does that mean for me? What did I learn from it? What was good, bad, ugly, neither here nor there? And then what now? So what does that mean for me now? Where do I take that? Where am I moving forward? And those really simple questions of, what, so what, and what now, give you this blueprint to really pull apart and analyze in many dimensions, literally any aspect of your life, right? any aspect at all. And I think it's powerful. I think it really does help you. It's better than goal setting, because it just gives you direction setting, and direction and intention are always going to be so much more important, because they're flexible and they're growth orientated rather than being rigid and restrictive and, something that you set and forget. They become this living, breathing part of you because they're things you think about all the time.
Oh man,
that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, no, I love those questions, and those questions are simple questions, but
really
tough
simple
questions to answer. Like, because you have to ask yourself these questions and truly answer them, not just like brush them off with an answer you think should be generic. And I think that that's kind of the tougher part if you're not maybe already doing this self-reflection. And notice how we're not sitting here telling you goal setting. Allie nailed it. It's literally about reflecting and trying to know, are you actually being intentional behind, maybe the vision you have, or what you want in life, or whatever it is that you're, setting out to get as a goal. Yes, but, is your direction and your speed, kind of going against each other. Because if you're going in a different direction, but you're, technically speeding in a different one, right? Gosh, you're getting pulled and you just think that you're doing things right. And so knowing that your intention is leading you in the right direction first before you start picking up the pace, take it from me. Don't go, 1,000 miles an hour, and hurt yourself. It's really about taking time to slow down and see the areas that maybe you are doing too much in, or maybe you're not doing enough in, because that is really the biggest here. Because let's go back into maybe a physical standpoint here, like, because I think a lot of people will be training maybe year round and never really take those breaks, like they know, or they take too many breaks, or it could be vice versa, right? So it just goes on consistency. Can you do something over and over again consistently? So once you can get that down and you nail those habits that are consistent in your day to day, then you can start, of course, trying to do more. But first is trying to make sure that, you set yourself out to have the right environment. If you don't have an environment that serves you, we've said it so many times on this podcast. It's so important to have the right people, the right circle, just the right setting. And if the setting is what's holding you back, taking yourself away from that setting and going somewhere else and creating a new setting that is going to help you. And this is the time that you can do the actual cleaning up process of things if you've kind of felt like you haven't done it. I think that this is very important when it comes down to the reflection too. It's not just the good and bad, but also, what you gained, because at the same time, yes, it's progression, but the gaining side is like your actual people you might have met, the connections you've made, and then that also goes in with the letting go of how you maybe have to let go of people and let go of environments, right? So like kind of leaving it here. And that's kind of where I feel this season, right, of a new year coming in changes for me, because then I do kind of reflect on that. It's around the people, not just myself. It's like those that are around me that affect me, or also that really encourage me or that have really good impact in my life. So all of that is addressed into your reflection. It's not just your personal wins, right?
Yeah, correct. And for me, I think one of the largest reasons too that I went, not only is it for my own physical health and well-being, and then for my potential progression and success as an athlete, to not go into worrying about bouncing back and, just gaining this shrinking mentality. I also wanted to have a situation where I was more, surplus and build, because we all know that takes a lot less of your time, and it's an in-depth sort of, it might be a 4-day week training structure only versus 5 plus cardio plus this plus that. I'm not hyper focused and fixated on food, and I'm not running on low fuel. I'm fueled well to breastfeed for as long as I potentially can. I am also, though, therefore present in my home and with my children as I am assimilating a newborn into an environment and navigating for the first time in my life 2 under 2. I've never done that before. So I'm also being really, when I'm setting my intentions for 2024, conscious of the other people and the people I care about and my immediate values, which is family unit, not being affected by personal goals that I have, but also me not losing personal goals that I have, because I'm really big on a woman maintaining her own identity and not just becoming mum and that is it. I've always lived that life and I won't stop doing that, but I also recognize that I need to be realistic about what I can and can't do and the time I will and won't have when I'm juggling all these things, right? So I'm putting baby girl and, managing the family unit and still making sure that I have all this time for Georgie, so he doesn't feel like mum's just all of a sudden not mum anymore.
Doesn't care about me.
Exactly, mum's forgotten me. I'm really focused on that. So this was another part of my decision-making
balance.
Yeah, and the really good thing is, look, I just have the best partner. Yeah, I don't.
Oh, he's awesome.
It just doesn't matter, like if I turned around and said I wanted to go balls to the wall and do something crazy, he'd be like, all right, let's do it. You know, if I turn around and say, hey, I know I need to actually slow down, let's take our time, I'm not in a rush, he's like, that's great too. Do you know what I mean? Like he doesn't stop me from doing anything, but he is 100% supportive to helping me make it a reality, no matter what it is. But I think he appreciates my decision-making process, that I'm gonna not go balls to the wall.
Right. No, and on that
He
note, I
appreciates
think
it.
it's so important, count your blessings. This is
Yeah.
all with your reflection. It's like we're sitting here always like again picking ourselves apart. So, the blessings that are within our lives now, we can't ever move forward and achieve that
Yeah.
next level or those next things or more things if you're never even grateful for what you currently have or what you
Right.
have in your life or what you've already achieved.
Yeah.
So really simmer that and reflect and be grateful. I think the gratitude is probably the biggest thing that our heart can feel along with love, but it's also, that gratitude feeling. When you're grateful, there's nothing that compares to it. It's like the same thing with me chasing peace all year. It's like I've just been trying to, respect my own peace, respect my boundaries, and
Yeah.
create them because I had different boundaries at the beginning of the year that I had to change. And it was the same thing from previous years. It's like each year I've had to adjust and I've had to kind of change maybe how I channel energy or how I'm able to, tap into my creativity or tap into some of the potential or things or talents that maybe I have just really not tried diving into much because I've been suppressing them because all I wanted to do was compete, challenge my physique, have this identity
Yes.
of one label. And
Yeah.
we're all multifaceted and there's so
Yeah.
many things that we can do. If you wanted to be a freaking interior designer, but you have a full-time job, you have a full family and you have all these things, but that's a passion of yours and you've just, limited yourself, well, because you don't, apply that as an actual maybe goal, but you can do that. And I think these are the things that we need to kind of find is what makes you happy, what makes joy come into your life. It could be music, it could be a hobby that you've just never, it could be art, right? Like a hobby like that. It could be handcrafting, it could be even pottery, like all these things that, like for me, it's been really unique, but it's really been going into more hands-on DIY things that have just made me so happy. Like if I made it, I just am like, man, I made that. Like, and it's sitting in my home and I
I'm the
framed it.
shit.
Yeah, you feel like a badass when you make something. So if you need to get your, little creativity hat on, and that's what kind of brings you a little more joy, like it did me this year, I encourage that. Like trying to find those things that maybe we've put on the back burner and we maybe set a goal at the beginning of the year and you haven't achieved that. It's okay. Don't, it's okay to fail too. But I just want to say it's like, revisit that, but be more realistic with the goal this time. If you said you were going to be a professional, pottery maker or something by the end of the year, and that was also obviously maybe a little
Probably an
more realistic.
unrealistic goal.
Yeah. Maybe just say, hey, I'm going to start taking a couple classes and, start diving in, or maybe buy a machine or, all of the things that would have taken for you to even build those habits. So just, I know that's such a weird, random example. But my pottery gals out there,
You're gonna be
I've
like, amen, sister.
yeah, I mean, it's 'cause I've been wanting to do it. Honestly, I think the reason why I brought it up, I've been really looking at how interesting it is to be able to make your own vase and you're okay. You know what it is? I want to make my own cups, like tea cups and like latte
Coffee
cups,
cup. You're
coffee
gonna do your
cups
own
and
coffee
stuff.
cup.
So I like started looking at people making them and I'm like, I can do that. I want to
Dude, do
do
you
that.
understand how expensive they are? The ladies that sell them at the markets that we go
I
to every
know,
single Saturday,
but I'm not
they
doing it for
start at
money.
like
I want to
they
do it
start
to
at
know how to do
50
it.
bucks. So it's like,
I mean, we
absolutely.
can make a business out of it now that you're talking, but still.
100%, 100%. So I think too, the key here is, prioritization. So just kind of going, okay, what am
What's
I going to prioritize,
important?
and being a little bit realistic about the number of things you can prioritize in a single year, because you might try to bite off more than you chew and say you're going to do 5 things. Realistically, you'll nail one and you'll be 70% maybe on 2, or you might nail 2 and just start on 3. Point being, have a few things you'd love to do, prioritize the most important ones, and then set boundaries, as Steph said, because it's super important. Make it known what is of value to you to achieve in that year. Because I think most people that are rallying with you are going to want that success for you. So people in your sphere, don't be hesitant or afraid to talk about the things you want to do. Like, everyone knows about my Gumby dreams with my Olympic lifting. So, I think it is cool to be able to discuss with the, people that you love what you want to do.
And if they make fun of you, they are people that should not be around you. You should not know. Because if they're trying to, belittle or, technically say your dream is dumb, or it's just, even unrealistic. Like, who cares if it's a dream that you've wanted to achieve? Just be realistic with your timeline. Doesn't mean that you need to not set that goal. Just means that you need to, be a little bit more on, okay, logistically, it might take me 5 years, but at the same time, I'm not going to stop from saying that's a goal of mine. Because if it is your goal to one day step on stage, it doesn't mean that you have to do it by 2024. It means that maybe on one day you might step on stage. It could be 2026, it could be 2030. Doesn't matter when it takes, you to get on that stage. So never let anyone ever tell you that is a stupid goal, or, your dream is just unachievable, because it's not true. What you set yourself out to do with your mind, truly, it is incredible what you can actually follow through with, but you have to be consistent in your day-to-day. So it's very important to set up these habits that we're talking about, prioritize, again, your goals. What's more important?
Exactly.
Is it your health? Because if obviously your health should be one of the biggest things on this totem pole at the top. And if it's not, then we probably need to reorganize this list a little bit.
2024 could be a whole nother kind of roller coaster.
Oh, yes.
And I think too, the other thing and I think you'll agree with me on this, I'm just looking forward to having a year of celebrating and being deeply entrenched and involved in, the rollout of these exciting new stages and platforms for people, and knowing that that's what we're working towards. It's going to be a really
vision now.
really beautiful year, and I'm loving the concept of being, a bit more of a mentor to a lot of people, and guiding people through that process, and also supporting and developing and growing this for everyone to be able to experience something amazing. I don't feel that I have to be on that stage, because I feel like 2024 is going to be a little bit more of a supporting role rather than a lead actress role for me. And I think 2025, look out, I feel like everything we're doing in
you will see
2024
both
is really
Allie and I. Yes, you guys, if anyone that's listening and is interested or following the FMG platform, it is the new organization that we are very, very proudly a part of, and representing. It's FMG Shows. If any listeners haven't already looked them up, or following them on
show
Instagram.
schedule has just
they've just started releasing
some super exciting locations.
Boom, boom, like, dude, amazing locations. Like, it is worldwide, y'all. So there's going to be pop-up dates coming out. They're still locking in venues. It's really a hard thing to solidify and lock in things like that. So they're just getting obviously the ball going, and they've already released so much. I'm pumped. I know here in the States it's buzzing. The first US Pro-Am is happening July 14th here in Dallas, Texas. And then we're obviously starting off the year in Australia. So we had the first show of the year in April. What's the date?
In Sydney. So April 28th in Sydney.
April 28th. So those are the first two.
Yep. So first two. So that'll be the very first launch inaugural show. It's going to be absolutely spectacular. I cannot wait. I'm so pumped for it. And then our very first overseas trip is going to be to see Uncle Kerry and Steph
Y'all are
And
gonna
it'll
cook
be
some
good.
amazing food.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna come early just to smash the barbecue. And do you know what I love about off seasons?
You get to eat. You
I
get the
get to
calories.
have tamales with my
Okay, your
mom.
mom's gonna feed you some
I am going
good
to be fed
and
by
tamales.
Mama Bear like you would not believe. I'm getting down and dirty in the kitchen with Mama.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
going to be all about the tamales,
Oh,
mate.
and
To be
she
honest.
are they? Oh yeah, are the kids gonna be traveling
Yeah,
with
of
you?
course.
Oh
100%.
my God, I
100%.
can't.
Yeah.
Can't. So guys, this is a lot obviously already happening, but there's gonna be more show dates released. They're like locking in a couple things, and I believe by the end of the year they're gonna be saying some more news. So I'm super pumped. So
Yes.
just kind of stay tuned on their stories and on their pages, and
Yeah.
you'll get all the notices. Ari and Pauline are just running this so well. Their
Yeah.
organization is
100%.
so professional. You can already see
Yeah.
they're following through with everything that they've said that they were going to do. So to me, that is already the biggest kind of like, oh my gosh, these people are legit because they actually are doing their actions speak for
I
themselves.
was going to say that I feel like it is like just true leadership, right?
Oh yes, from the top.
There is not a single thing that gets said that has no that is failing in substance. Like every single thing is meticulously executed on, and I really appreciate that for all of the time and the effort and
Transparency
the
is
energy
huge.
and the emotional and financial cost and the sacrifices you make as an athlete to get to that stage. That's what's important, is the fact that you're going to have an experience that, irrespective of the outcome in placing, you walk away from it feeling like you've accomplished something, feeling like you're a part of something, and feeling like you had a fair shakedown with some really solid feedback to go away and do something better next time. Like it's a very different experience. And so for me, I'm like so proud of it because I know that it's going to be everything that I want for my athletes and my team and my community and my best friends and my peers and my, people that I love, that I stand beside on stage even, as well as my own journey. It's going to be a powerful, I think, new chapter for all of us. And it's super exciting, I just can't say anything more than the fact that everyone can expect to have a wonderful experience, but also to feel like they are genuinely part of something. And I think that's super exciting. So this is why I said I don't feel devastated about not getting on stage. I am loving having a support role in this, new chapter. It's really cool. And I think it's going to be amazing to see everyone, see all the familiar faces, see some old faces returning, but then meet all the new faces. I'm super pumped. And you know what? This show will be the day after my birthday. So I'll be celebrating my birthday with you for the very first time.
It's amazing. Okay, I did not know that fact. So that makes me even. So we're throwing a party. You guys, we're about to a really good little party at my house for this moment.
Because
Oh, mom is
normally,
gonna have fun with you.
normally I spend my birthday weekend, or it's either side of it, at the Sydney show in Australia. It's
Yeah,
usually
that
around
usually
then,
would have
but
been.
it's all changed now. So now I'm going to be spending my
I
birthday.
love it. We're gonna put a
So
cowboy hat
tell
on,
mom
Texas cowboy boots.
tell mom I have an order for birthday tamales.
Oh, I'm telling you, she's already probably doing. She's in El
an
Salvador,
epic cake.
so I can guarantee you she's probably going to bring you cheese from El Salvador.
Love it.
Because
Love it.
that is just how they do this. They go to their home country and they come back with all the beans and
Love it.
and I'm like, you guys
I
brought
love
cheese.
it.
They're like, oh, Stephanie, you don't get this cheese anywhere in the world. Okay, mother.
How good is she? I love it. I love it. So we're super pumped, and I can't wait for that. I think that it's going to be an amazing start to the year. But I also am really grateful, again, the divine timing of things, right? It actually kind of has fallen into this beautiful space where the schedule works for the process for me post baby. Like I will be 100% post the
Perfect
healing
timing.
process. She'll be settled into her sleep schedule. I should have a really solid routine between juggling toddler and newborn and business and starting
Bless
to
your heart,
train.
women.
Like It's going to be good.
You're going to be in for
Oh,
a
mate,
nice
it's going to be a
little
wild
roller
ride.
coaster here soon. Oh, the sleepless nights and all the things that she's about to be
I know.
waiting on.
I know.
Good stuff.
I'm
Good stuff.
I'm
And
taking
obviously,
advantage of the last 2 weeks that I have now to just get as much time with George as I can. Because for the first, which I'm going to really struggle with actually, and I don't know if any mothers listening to this, if you have any advice, please DM me because I'm here for it. I'm post C-section. I can't pick George up at all for the first. It's like 4 weeks easy, right? So I'm going to really struggle with that because I know he's going to be, he's at my, legs and wanting to be picked up. So I'm going to feel like,
Georgie,
I don't know,
like a bad mom because you're not picking him up.
Guilt and all these things because I'm not going to be able to pick him up and he's going to see me holding this new one and want to know, well, why are you able to hold her? So this is a real
technique, moms out there. Is there a technique that you guys do to get the kid
give me some?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Is there a way you could crawl up your leg? Trying to think of
this kind of, I have moments where this keeps me up a little bit at night about how I'm going to approach this. But anyway,
that's what I have coming up. There should be some device made to kind of
has to be like a contraption, just a buzzer I can press.
Yeah, just put them on, press, go up. I don't know if the not hasn't been invented yet. Maybe someone's listening.
Oh my God! So like yes, I'm coming into these challenges, and then I'm coming into
4 weeks is quite a bit. I mean, mamas that are even single moms, like, what do they do?
Like, when you think about how much time you're cuddling them all day, every day, you're like, oh my God, that's going to be. How am I going to cope? Let alone how's he going to cope? He's probably going to be fine. He's probably like, whatever, mum, see ya. And I'm going to be like. But
true.
I'm trying to get as much time in there as I can. And I'm also just trying to give myself grace and not push my button to get up out of bed 100 miles an hour first thing in the morning at 4 or 5. If I hear him, and Christos has been amazing. He's let me sleep through that early part if he wakes up early because he knows that right around the corner, I'm going to be every 2 hours, every 3 hours. There'll be, so he's been amazing. He gives me that extra grace and I've been giving it to myself because I don't have it for long. And then it's going to be, God knows, because every child's different. She might sleep through the night early. She might take a year. We don't know. So you got to roll the punches.
Oh yeah. And of course, you have to navigate things as they come. I think sometimes we build up the anxiety way beforehand, like kind of like we're saying that we have been doing over a couple things, recently or even throughout the year. It's like, but we have to not stress over tomorrow and not stress over what's not here, right? Take it day by day and just know what can I do to calm myself now because that's all I can take care of. And that's all I can do, right? At the end of the day, is really all you can do is decompress for that day and but still send the tips to Allie because I do believe that is very important. Yeah, something that needs to be fixed at some point for any post C-section mom. That is tough. I mean, that's a long time.
Trust me, after having done 2 vaginal births and this will now be my second C-section, I'd still choose a C-section any goddamn day of the week. But
I think I'm going to request it.
It's the only downside is that like, oh my God, when you have a little one as well, you can't pick him up. So that's the only thing for me where I'm like, oh, this is going to be challenging. But outside of that, I would never go natural ever again.
Well, New Year, she's starting the new year off with a baby girl.
I am starting it off with a bang. So please, send me all of your advice.
Sending all your prayers, sending all of the good vibes to you.
And if you have any questions on any of the, things we've talked about today, around reflective practice, around, intentional setting, around the FMG show schedule or anything at all, please don't hesitate to contact either Steph or myself. And if there's anything in here that you think was, interesting or of value, or you've just got a friend that could help, this one here out with some advice on this whole.
Yeah, all the advice with Allie, y'all. If I had anything, Allie, I would tell you. But I'm empty here. I don't know. I still am amazed they haven't created a device for babies post C-section or something.
God,
I mean, seriously, how to cradle with your baby, how to pick them up. Then
it's like
we appreciate you guys seriously, everyone, we do appreciate you guys. We always see the shares, we always see the reviews. So we appreciate that. And please don't stop, because that is how we get shared and get to more audience and more other, people that need to hear or just be part of our community. We appreciate you guys so much, and to stick around all year. If you've been listening or catching up on the episodes, I've had some people say, hey, I binged on y'all's episodes and heard like a few. I'm like, oh, well, you heard a few. Like, how many hours were you on cardio? Like, I was throughout the week doing cardio. It's like, okay, good. That makes you feel better. I having you guys always tune in and have you guys as our listeners. So we do appreciate y'all. We're grateful that you guys are actually one of the things that I'm grateful for that I had down in my list when I went through my gratitude. Same as you, Allie. It's always a blessing to be you every time. So hey, to all of you, make sure you reflect. You are analyzing how your year went, good, the bad, but don't be too judgmental. Make sure you're having good intentions. You're, calling yourself out, but not doing it in a mean way. Try to make sure you have a game plan going into 2024. Don't self-sabotage, and don't let yourself go just because it's, just a week before the end of the year and say, let's just go ahead and give in the towel and not do anything until January 1st. Don't be that person. So sure you're setting yourself up now, and you'll hit the ground running come January. You can already set yourself up for success if you start now rather than waiting. So rather than sitting around and dwelling on what you think you should start tomorrow, start it now. So I hope today's episode helped anyone or helped everyone.
Thanks for spending time with us. We really, really appreciate it. And we look forward to bringing you, some really exciting guests in the new year that we're lining up at the moment. But also just, hopefully more and more content that you can relate to or get something out of. So thank you again. Please follow us, subscribe, leave us reviews, and share with friends and family. We appreciate every single one of you. Until next time.
See ya. Bye, everyone.
Bye.